Hello, it's great to be back at PlatformCon. In the past editions, I talked about how platform as a product is an important approach to make successful internal platforms. I've also talked about how do we apply these ideas of platform as a product inside engineering as well as outside engineering. But today, I want to focus on something which is really the elephant in the room, oftentimes, which is the fact that platforms are often fragile and they often are the first victims in times of trouble, of cost concerns. And so today I wanted to talk about how do we go from fragile to anti fragile internal platforms. We have to start by making this important differentiation between our end products, which usually have clear revenue and maybe not super clear costs, and our internal platforms, even treated as a product, they usually have very clear costs for the organization, and the revenue is sometimes unclear or often unclear. So we need to have a better balance between these things. We need to clarify the value of the platform. What does it bring to the business? Whether that's measured in actual revenue or something else that is meaningful for the business stakeholders. And on the other hand, we might also try to improve the clarity on what are the actual costs of the products that we serve, that we provide to our end customers, right? In team topologies, we talk about a valuable platform as being those that reduced cognitive load of the streamline teams using them. And I still believe this should be the primary goal of any platform is to reduce cognitive load. But the challenge here is that it's hard to measure, and it's actually not possible to directly measure the cognitive load on a team. And so, for the moment, we cannot use that as a way to show, well, we've reduced cognitive load by X percent. However, we are working actually on a tool called Temperature, which has that goal of assessing not directly the cognitive load, but the drivers of cognitive load. And the goal is that in the future, we'll be able to not just get a picture of what is the cognitive load on different teams, but actually how did the platform help? How did some new services help reduce cognitive load on those teams? But for now, this is not something that we can actually, in practice, use today to communicate the value of platform to stakeholders outside of engineering, especially. So we really need to focus on the actual value to the business. And I really like the example from Adidas, super interesting talk where they were mentioning really important metrics for the business, right? Being able to free up time on the product teams so that they can focus on actually um, experimenting and improving the product that they're responsible for versus spending time in builds or setting up pipelines, things that the platform can help them with. And other metrics like how much money they were able to save by using common data services, for example, right? That's another really interesting metric. Adidas has a really interesting approach to platform engineering where the platform really acts as an engine for fast flow, and it increases the capacity and accelerates the engineering teams using the platform. Now, to get to this point where the platform is really the motor, the engine that accelerates experimentation, innovation, focus on the actual customer problems and business needs, and we need to establish a solid platform engineering um, journey, right? And that requires long term funding. We're not talking about months or a year, we're talking about investing in this internal platform as our engine or in multiple internal platforms as our engine to go faster. and be able to reach new revenue, new customers, new markets more effectively and provide more value to those customers. And Adidas has done that quite well, and they really invested in platform engineering as an internal department that has its own budget and so on. But for many organizations, like I said, the platforms are sort of fragile, and it's important to understand, broadly speaking, the economy always works in cycles, right? And anyone familiar with sort of basics of investing um, will know that investing in funds or stocks in the short term is quite risky. Unless you are expert there, you need to invest for the long term, because that's where we see a growth trend over time, right? Over 20 years, over um, you know 10 years at least, we can see that looking at the past, there was always a growth when you look at that time period. Um, so we work in cycles of contraction, expansion, right? Right now, we're in sort of contraction period. And so why does this matter for the platform? Because if we understand where we are in the actual broader scope of the business and the economy, um, then we can have better sort of expectations on what's going to happen. When are we going to have to justify more the platform value, what it's even its existence, but also that we start to have a broader picture of what is the value of the platform over a longer period of time, where we don't expect to be always in a contraction period, for example, right? um, and I often see that our platforms, even though might have done a great job, we actually built something quite impressive, but they're still fragile. And why is that? Well, partially because platform has not been able to clearly articulate the value that it provides to the organization. And so if we want anti-fragile platforms, we should first look at what does that mean, anti-fragility. So there's a book by that name from Nassim Taleb, and he talks about anti-fragility as a property of systems in which they increase in capability to thrive as a result of stressors, shocks, volatility, noise, mistakes, false attacks, or failures. Basically, any kind of stress we put on the system actually allows the system to improve and to increase its value rather than deteriorate and become less usable. Um, and here I want to talk mostly about stressors around the actual viability and sustainability of the platform, not so much kind of the actual platform services and whether they are reliable and they sustain stress or high traffic, um, but actually the platform as a thing that has value and should continue to exist. So there are many stressors we can think about for internal platforms that make them fragile, but I want to mention a few. And number one, having unhappy internal customers. So that meaning the teams that are supposed or are using the platform are not happy with it. Um, and so this can be for any number of reasons. Maybe some teams are not using the platform because they find it hard to understand. They don't have the time to onboard to the platform, or maybe they don't see that their use cases are treated in an adequate way, or they don't trust the performance of the platform. For whatever reason, teams aren't happy, right? And sometimes they're just unhappy because they don't feel like they've been listened to, or that they were helped by the platform teams, right? Um, so this stressor might feel like, well, it's hard to do something about it if we don't know why teams are unhappy with what we're providing, but that doesn't make it go away. We need to address it. We need to find ways where maybe it's with surveys, maybe we need to talk more often with the internal teams or look at how they use the platform. We need to find ways to get this input on why are they not happy. because the more unhappy teams we have, the more fragile the platform is. A second stressor has to do with the fact that it's hard to quantify often the direct business impact from having this internal platform. Again, it doesn't mean that we should shy away and say, well, we just cannot measure anything. We need to address this stressor and say, okay, what are some ways that we can directly or indirectly show how the platform had a business impact, right? Um, and so sometimes we need to be creative in a good way in terms of figuring out if we're providing this monitoring service. Um, this helped us reduce downtime. It helps us identify issues faster and recover from problems faster. That actually might mean less downtime or less customers being exposed to problems in the application or service. And so that actually translates to increased revenue or increased retention and so on, right? But we need to do this legwork. We cannot just say, oh no, this is hard. There's nothing we can do about it, because then the stressor is going to create fragility in the platform. A third stressor has to do with the fact that often decision makers, people who are actually going to decide if there's budget, if there's funding for the platform going forward, they don't often hear or know what is the value the platform is providing. They know that we've funded this platform because they're going to help the product teams or streamline teams deliver faster, and that's nice and good, but they don't see the actual results. They don't hear about what was actually the improvement that was achieved, what was actually um, the efficiency or acceleration that was achieved, right? So again, as platform leaders and platform teams, we cannot ignore this stressor. It's there. The larger the organization, the more the decision makers will be away, you know, from the platform in their day-to-day work. So we need to find ways to get the information to them. And so what I want to present are four pillars to improve platform sustainability and make platforms less fragile. The first one is that the platform needs to be trusted. When I say platform here, I mean not just the services, but also the actual platform teams or teams part of the platform group. They need to be trusted by the product teams. And this means often we need to take a consistent approach to how we make decisions about what we build in the platform or not. Um, we need to be consistent in how we prioritize work, have visibility on the roadmap so that and respond to requests for help in a timely manner. All these things that will generate trust from the product teams. Number two, we need to share the success stories. We need to find them and we need to make them visible to the rest of the organization. And this shows in a qualitative way why the platform is important and valuable. Number three, we need internal confidence in the platform teams that we're actually doing the right thing, that we're actually being helpful. And so that typically means we need some metrics on the adoption of the platform, on the user satisfaction and reliability of the platform, right? We should, by all means, expose these metrics to, let's say, the outside world beyond the platform, and make them visible and accessible. But this might not be the metrics that actually provide pillar number four, which is external confidence in the platform. So, I mean, confidence from the organization, confidence from the stakeholders in particular that are going to make decisions about platform sustainability. And that's where we need to start looking at sort of profit and loss related metrics. What is the return on investment in this platform? What are the costs and how are we controlling costs in the platform, what is the time to market that we're influencing by providing a good platform, improved flow of value to customers. It depends what exactly you're going to need to figure out, but we need to start being aware of other stakeholders that have a different perspective on the platform. They don't understand necessarily or are able to quantify the value of reducing cognitive load. They might not be able even to um, quantify the value of high platform adoption or high user satisfaction, right? So we need to figure out what are these other metrics that are going to provide external confidence in the platform. That's why I like the Adidas example so much. If you look at this, they're really, and this is provided by the platform engineering department, and they're talking the language of the business, right? They're not talking about how many teams are using this service or how fantastic this other service is or performant. They're talking about things that the business understands and values. And we can do this exercise. Imagine you are the CFO and you're being presented with platform adoption metrics. You know, if I'm the CFO, okay, this is interesting. How many teams are using the platform? How many applications using it, traffic, and so on. But this seems like a good thing, but I cannot necessarily pinpoint what is the value. But imagine you're actually able to tell me that the platform services that are being used by the products that we sell to our customers or we provide through whatever business model we have actually support this amount of revenue. Then my eyebrows will raise, right? Oh, interesting. So this X percent of our revenue is actually served and through these platform services, which are basically, you know, critical for us to achieve this revenue. Now that's interesting. Now that might give me a much better sense as a CFO. Why do we need to? Why should we continue with the platform? Another example: if we're sharing success stories of using the platform, if you tell me new engineers can ship code to production on week one or maybe even day one, as a CFO, I'll be like, okay, that sounds good, but maybe doesn't every organization do that? That new engineers can ship to production in week one? If you're a technical person, you know that's actually not that common, and actually requires a really good platform, good onboarding process, and also that the platform provides a lot of things out of the box for a new engineer to be able to use and have the right documentation, guidance, etc. But for me, the CFO, it sounds good, but I can't really quantify it. Again, I can pinpoint why is this something we should invest in or keep. But if you tell me another success story where we actually were able to reduce cloud costs by 10% across all services thanks to use of cheaper instances, for example, and because those services or products are using the platform adopted cheaper instances without losing performance or what have you or availability, then I can start to see, have a better picture of why is the platform valuable from my perspective as a CFO. And when I say CFO here, I could say CEO or CTO or um, whoever is going to be making decisions about the platform. So my advice to you is focus on that last mile of platform as a product that is often overlooked, which is measure the value you are generating with the platform, right? And if you cannot measure that, then you need to go back to step one, understand are we even building this platform? But usually, in my experience, there is value that being generated. We're just not taking the time and effort to quantify it to show what is the value. Secondly, understand the business cycles that we talked about earlier and what are the incentives in the organization for funding the platform or not, right? Understand in which cycle we are, understand that you need to give a bigger picture and show, look, we might be in a bad period and okay, we cannot increase the team, we cannot hire more, but show me why shouldn't we cut costs on the platform teams, for example, right? um, Show me that you have done enough to control costs, that we're not overspending, right? We need to be able to have those answers as platform leaders. You need to be able to show what has been the return on investment of the platform until now. And this doesn't mean that we need a huge platform that does a lot of things. We can have a very small platform, but we can show the cost was X and the return has been 10 times over X or whatever it might be. But we need to measure that value and show it. If we have this value, then we can also forecast what is the future value of the platform and show different scenarios. If we keep the platform as it is today, then the value will, and with the same adoption, then the value stays constant. If we keep the platform as today, but we see increased adoption, maybe we're improving the usability, we're improving documentation, etc. And if we see increased adoption by product teams, then the value of the platform goes up. If we actually invest in building more things into the platform and continue to grow the platform to help with other aspects that the product teams need help with, then we expect, for a certain level of adoption to grow even more the value and the return on investment. This is the kind of work that we cannot afford to neglect anymore in platforms. And I believe the current economic situation is showing that. We cannot have platforms being that fragile that they become usually the first victims when there is some economic turbulence. And I want to end before I mention a couple of resources with this quote from a paper measuring the value of our internal developer platform investments. The authors say transforming internal platforms from from mere technical solutions into strategic assets and fostering a collective understanding and appreciation across stakeholders is key to successful platforms. So I really like this approach. It's not just about building the right technical solution, even if your peers and people using platform are very happy, that still might not be enough if you cannot show that this has strategic value to the organization. Today's talk is sort of a teaser, some pointers on how do we think about the value of a platform. Um, if you're interested to know more, I have a 1-day training on growing internal platforms engines for fast flow, where we cover other aspects as well. How do we build trust with internal teams? How which kind of internal metrics should we follow and measure in the platform? Um, and other aspects that are important for this approach of internal platforms as engines for fast flow. And finally, on our website, teamtopology.com, we have a page dedicated to platform engineering, where we show our point of view of platform engineering as a way of thinking and designing a team of teams that works for the organization or part of the organization. So a lot of free resources there as well, talks, articles, and things that you can take more insights from. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.